Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking Hugh for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking Hugh for Granted, the podcast in which two friends watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question: is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? This week, like every week, I'm joined by Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing very well, Diggs. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. We've just watched Cloud Atlas 2012. Should we get into it?
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Cloud Atlas, directed by Tykwer, Lana and Lilly Wachowski, and released in 2012. Based on a novel of the same name, Cloud Atlas follows several storylines, including that of an attorney who harbours a fleeing slave on a voyage from the Pacific Islands in 1849, a poor composer in pre-World War II Britain struggles to finish his magnum opus before a past act catches up with him, and a genetically engineered worker in 2144 feels the forbidden stirring of human consciousness. Though these 6 stories span 5 centuries, they all have an effect on one another. Everything is connected.
Hard film to put into words. Let's, I think, Oscar, start talking about the good things about this. Let's list the good things about this film. Hugh Grant. Okay, now we're done listing the good things. Let's maybe move on to some of the bad. Oscar, talk to me. What did you think about this film off the bat?
Well, when I sat down to watch this film last night, I sort of didn't really leave myself enough time because I found a little stream for the film.
Nice.
2 hours and 51 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I sort of started watching, and half an hour was in, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I looked up some of the reviews, and the reviews were not favourable. I'm struggling to work out whether I just am not a very good film critic, and I don't understand how magnificent and ambitious this film is, or it's just crap.
So I saw a wonderful, wonderful review online. It really was great. It was some kind of similar to yours, where a guy came at the end of it. He was like, "Guys, this film, you either love it or hate it, and I think I'm kind of in the middle." It's like, well, okay, it's brilliant. So you don't either love it or hate it. But that's exactly it. I was watching this film much like you, and half an hour in, I just sort of went to myself, "What the fuck is going on?" And some, it's not like other films where it's like in a good way, when you're like, what's going on? There's a film I watched recently called Midsummer, which was meant to be like this kind of like.
Is that the horror film?
Yeah, the Swedish.
Oh my god,
horror film.
that is a what the fuck is going on?
Exactly. I like to call that film a what the fuck-a-thon. It's like a marathon of you just going. Literally, that film, I was like, every 5 minutes I go, what the fuck? But like, that was in a good way. I was like, what the fuck? But I wanted to see more. I was confused, but in the right ways. This film, the problem is it jumps around so much. We have 6 timelines. We have an assortment of different characters who were also being played by the characters who were playing the different roles in the different timelines.
So confusing. Confusing. I didn't even realise that some of the characters were playing different characters in the different timelines. Because to be fair, the makeup artist did a good job.
Exactly. Yeah, that was. Do you know what? That was actually, I said at the beginning, I took the piss out of saying the best thing about it was Hugh Grant. But what was actually really quite fun was going, which one is that? Because I kept being like, now is that Halle Berry or is that, that person, or, who's dressed up as who? Because in each scene you'd be like, and there's a few that I want to be like, Oscar, did you spot who that was?
I know.
In that scene and stuff. It's great fun.
Well, I can see what they thought about this film when they were making it. I think that they thought that this was going to be the smash hit of the decade. The film that they threw so much money at this. It was $120 million, one of the most expensive independent films ever. It's got a fantastic cast. It's got Tom Hanks, who I love, Halle Berry, Hugh Grant,
Amazing.
Ben Whishaw.
I'll start you at Hugh Grant, to be honest.
Jim Broadbent again, who
Of course,
we see Ben Whishaw, Jim Broadbent, and Hugh, of course, in Paddington. It's got a whole load of stars in it, and they've chucked so much money at it, and it's just a dud.
What I kept seeing people say was, it was a heroic failure, or it was a great effort, and it's like, why?
An extremely honourable failure is what I read.
Yes,
but
exactly.
a failure.
People kept saying that, and I was like, but every review that said that sort of kept saying, this is bad about the film. This is bad about the film. Tom Hanks trying to do an Irish accent was bad. Some of the acting in it was awful. Some of this was bad. Some of that was, it was confusing. It didn't make any sense. It was terrible. It was too long. It was this honourable failure. And it's like, why? Everything you've said was crap.
Anyway, maybe we should move on to Hugh.
Maybe it's probably time to move on to Hugh.
Well, you're listening to Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted on the radio. Hugh Grant taking Hugh for granted. Oh, the podcast show.
As we've mentioned, the different actors in this film occupy different characters in the different timelines, so they're multi-rolling. Let's go chronologically in the time, not in when they're first seen
if
on
that's
screen.
possible.
But let's try and do it how they were. So the first one to come in chronological human sense. So he starts as... Well, I just want to make this point as well, that Tom Hanks said in one of his interviews, he said this film follows... It's to show that your soul and the fact that you reincarnate, they can get better. And Tom Hanks's character starts as a fiend, a thief, who's trying to steal this person's money and ends up saving the universe some basically 500 years later, or 400 years later.
I didn't really get that.
No, I'm sure that's going to be. We're going to keep saying that in this episode, but so these reincarnations can get better. Let's just quickly riddle off Hugh Grant's soul and how good that gets. He starts as a slave-owning reverend named Giles Horrocks. So even the name Horrocks makes you think he's not great. Then he's a hotel heavy, breaking up a couple of lovers enjoying themselves, Ben Whishaw and his boyfriend. Which, small part, but still not great. Then he's Lloyd Hooks, the 70s sleaze-ball and oil supremacy conspirator that's happy for his nuclear plant to blow up, killing thousands of people. Then he plays Denholm Cavendish, a bastard who locks his brother up in abusive old people's home. Then he plays Sia Ray, a soap-addicted owner of a restaurant in Neo Seoul and a fabricant rapist, fabricants being clones that he rapes. And then a Kona chieftain, if you didn't think it'd get any worse, the leader of a tribe of savage, hellbent cannibals. So to go along with Tom Hanks's theory that it shows that the soul can get better, Hugh Grant's soul just gets worse and worse.
But so where did you want to start? You wanted to start with...
I think we should start with the slave-owning reverend.
When I first encountered Haskell Moore's writing, its perspicuity struck me as though delivered through divine revelation. The learned doctor here and I have already spent many a night debating Mr. Moore's tractors.
I'm only willing to concede that he makes a compelling case as to why we are sitting here, enjoying this divine lamb, while Kupaka stands there, content to serve.
Indeed. Kupaka, you enjoy your life here with us, do you not?
Oh, yes, Reverend, sir. Kupaka very happy here.
You see, this is Moore's ladder of civilization. The reason behind this natural law.
Please just do shut up.
So he has an American accent, which is a first.
He must have done an American accent before, but my God, does it not suit him? It's awful. It's I don't know if it doesn't suit him or I think it's bad or a bit of both.
He's got really bad hair as well. He's got like the most greasy hair we've seen out of any film we've watched so far. And you know, he kind of looks like Jeremy Thorpe in A Very English Scandal, but a very bad version of Jeremy Thorpe. Like longer, greasier hair. Yeah. And then the accent just doesn't sit right with me.
No, exactly. And he's got this horrible Abraham Lincoln-esque tuft of hair under his chin, kind of like the tuft of hair that I'm sporting now. Kind of like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. I've been growing one during lockdown, and it's awful. My
I can't even see it, Diggs.
Exactly. But my mum can. When you're up close, my mum, who I'm living with at the moment, she can't bear to look at me. That's the kind of facial hair we've got on Hugh. I just have with that character. It's like the thing is with Hugh in this film, you blink and you miss him.
Look out the window. Look out the window. Look out the window. It's Hugh Grant in a Pret.
Now, this is the character that Hugh Grant is the most. Lloyd Hooks. This is his biggest part, I suppose.
Yeah.
On screen, the '70s sleazeball who has been. Again, I mean, I don't feel like there's any point in explaining what he does.
No, there is no point. He's doing something to do with nuclear power, and that's about it.
Yeah, and it's bad, guys. Just know that it's bad.
And sorry, this is just to confirm. This is the one where he's got like the shit waistcoat, tie, sunglasses on, or was that another bloke?
I think. Hang on, that might be another. That might be. So the '70s one is he's basically Daniel Cleaver, but in the '70s. And the first thing he asks Halle Berry when she comes up to me is he goes, "You're Ms. I know you're Ms. What's your name though?" Like he knows already that she's not married, and he's just like, that's what he cares about. He's like, "Oh, you look lovely," all that shit.
I have to say, if all lady journalists look like you, I might start to take this women's lib thing more seriously.
Well, I'm sure they can use your support.
Nice. Okay, you wait here, and I will go and find someone smarter who can walk you through the details of some of your questions.
Great.
How do you explain who he is? He's just basically the hotshot guy who then, when he turns his back for a bit, Halle Berry goes and tries to steal some papers and meets one of Tom Hanks's 6 fucking characters. I mean, honestly, trying to explain this film, guys, is just a nightmare. It's an absolute minefield.
It really is.
For Hugh Grant fans, this is our first taste, I suppose, chronologically speaking, of something a bit close to home. It's very similar to Daniel Cleaver. He's the boss. He's a sleazeball. He's looking for a quick shag wherever he can get it. That's all he really cares about. So yeah, I mean, that's it.
I wonder if when they were making Paddington 2, the directors of that watched Cloud Atlas and thought, now here's a versatile actor who can play multiple roles.
He said, when I was offered the part, I thought, great, I can show people I have more strings to my bow. A, I was wrong. And B, it was just sitting in makeup all day and I was very bad-tempered. But that's it. I mean, I think it's interesting because this falls right as we call the Hugh Naissance, the bit when Hugh's been doing all these great films and he's absolutely smashing it. Cloud Atlas probably, if we were being honest, would be the moment where he made that shift. But obviously, sadly, the first shift was a fucking massive dud.
But it should have been. It should have been amazing. Like it could have been. Yeah. It could have been like I was involved in this amazing film with Tom Hanks that won multiple awards. Like I feel like that could have been.
Yeah.
And Hugh himself has actually said that he really likes the film, and that's what kind of pisses me off. That all these actors like Tom Hanks is like. Tom Hanks has admitted that this is the only film that he stars in that he's watched more than twice. He loves it that much, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that's down to because I watched this bloody Toronto International Film Festival. I watched a whole hour of a round table where it was just the directors just wanking each other off for 30 minutes of it, and then the rest of it, well, maybe 40 minutes of it. But they all talk about, all the actors seem to have loved the filmmaking process, really love the film. They really get into it. And I think that's the difference between people that like this film and people that don't, is that it's, I guess, I mean, this is
you have to be a pretentious twat.
Are you a business owner?
Are you running a political campaign? Are you a furniture outlet having yet another sale? If the answer to any of those questions isn't no, then you can have your advertisement right here. The Taking Hugh for Granted podcast gets over 100 listeners every single episode. For prices starting as low as 6 figures, you can have your advertisement right here. So what are you waiting for? Email takinghughforgranted@gmail.com today for a full price list, and you can have your advertisement right here.
The next one is probably, I'm sure, your favourite and mine. Hugh Grant character is Denholm Cavendish, the bastard who locks Jim Broadbent, his brother, up in an old people's home, which is so great because that's when he played. He really reminded me then of Fletcher.
He does.
In The Gentleman.
He puts on his Estuary accent for you. For
exactly,
us.
And he's a bit of a. He reminds me. He looks like Terry Tibbs for anyone that saw Phone Jacker, and he's like I say, he sounds just like Fletcher. There's a couple of things I love about this. Hugh Grant said that he was originally meant to play five parts, and he was reading the script and he's like, "Have you cast the part of Denholm yet?" And they said no, and he was like, "I'd really like to play that part." So he asked for it himself, and that's one he enjoyed the most. And he was obviously fantastic.
And he had like prosthetic face and nose and all this kind of weird stuff. It was quite hard to recognise at first, and then I heard the accent and I was like, heard that
Hang
one
on a
before.
minute. Exactly. Yeah, he's got this like he looks a bit like a like a chubby, well, let's be honest, a fat Hugh Grant. As I say, if you don't know who Terry Tibbs is, look up Terry Tibbs. It's almost the spitting image of what Hugh looks like. And did you know who his wife was? Did you see who his wife was played by?
I didn't know.
Mate, you're going to absolutely love this. When asked his favourite person to play, Ben Whishaw replied, Hugh Grant's wife. Ben Whishaw plays Denholm Cavendish's wife.
Yes.
How sick is that?
The universe.
So
the universe is being
mate.
linked up.
Every film they're in, they're either killing each other or banging each other. It's great. Or both. Oh dear, the next character, Sia Ray.
This is Korean, Hugh?
Yeah, so we're in Neo Seoul now, and there's this restaurant where a load of clones who all look the same, Korean clone women who all look the same, like the servers, and Sia Ray or Ree is Hugh Grant, who like makes sure that he owns the restaurant, makes sure they all do it. He looks like Seth MacFarlane, from the guy who created Family Guy.
Yeah.
We can put up a little. They look like the spitting image of it because they made him look. What do you think about the makeup for these scenes? Because they try and make a lot of Western characters look Eastern Asian.
It really looks terrible. There was quite a lot of controversy, I think, about this because they sort of yellowed up the Western actors to make them look Korean, but then it just kind of looks like their faces have been stretched backwards and pinned to the side of their heads.
Exactly, and it's not right. It's just not right. And I mean, particularly for those bits, because I saw a review afterwards of someone saying, because it was set in the future and it was sci-fi, and that's really when they do most of this, trying to make Westerns look Asian. People thought, kind of like me, to be honest, they just thought it was like, oh, this is what aliens look like, and this is what humans look like in the future. They look kind of like Klingon or something.
Yeah,
but
that's
no,
so
they're
true.
trying to make them.
It looks like Star Trek or something.
Exactly. And I thought that, and so that was my view for the majority of the film until I realised I was like, oh no, they are trying to make them look, I suppose, Korean. Then if that's where it's set, like I was like, that is weird now because it doesn't work. It doesn't look right. It doesn't. Yeah. And yeah, but having said that, the flip side of that though is Halle Berry was talking about how she I don't know, I think she was talking to Tom Hanks about how to put on a certain piece of garb or something, and Tom said, "Oh, haven't you ever done a period piece before? Haven't you ever worn this sort of stuff before?" And then it dawned on him that for Halle Berry, if she has been in any period pieces, she will be playing a slave or close to. Because she's black. Meanwhile, in this period piece, she is able to play a Jewish German white woman, and she was like, for me, this is a really big moment in my career. I am playing a role that I have never been able to play and will never be able to play again. And it was really empowering. So I thought, some of that stuff is fascinating, and it's really interesting. The problem is, makeup-wise, as much as we laud some of the makeup, it doesn't work, and it's a bit fucking weird. So, I mean, especially
it is just really weird.
When we're coming out of it and I'm going, well, the people that were supposed to look like they were Koreans, I'm coming out saying they look like aliens. That's not right. And actually, in fact, that that's just not right.
Look over there. Hugh Grant's in a Pret. Look over there. He's holding a baguette.
My favourite character, to move on, because we're maybe a little short on time, is the tattoo warlord Hugh.
Feasting on Adam and his boy by sundown. You say all the time, yeah, the weak are meat, the strong do eat.
Yes.
This is the one. I mean, he will never play anything like this ever again, most likely.
No, I mean the first time. So it's futuristic Hawaii.
It's so stupid.
Oh god.
I feel so bad for the guy who wrote this book, because apparently it's a great book.
I've heard it's great. Although I asked my mum and she said, yeah, it's a bag of shit, so don't bother. So it's futuristic Hawaii. There is, I think the world has been ravaged by, civil war. Whereas Tom Hanks's clan are quite peaceful. I'm sure they just, hunt deer every now and then, all that stuff. Hugh Grant's lot have become savage, hellbent cannibals who paint themselves white and red. And the first time Hugh's on this, because he's the chieftain of these lot, the first time they do a close-up on him, actually the first time I think we see him, he slits someone's throat and they shoot a young boy with an arrow in the back.
Then he licks blood off the knife.
Yeah. The guy, it's mad. And I don't think he says a single word as this character, but he's constantly there causing a menace to this peaceful little, village. But like he
makes Tom Hanks sweat as well.
Yeah, big time. Because he's terrifying. And Hugh Grant said the costume he slips into of an evening when he's watching television. So he really did enjoy the Kona Chieftain outfit.
Well, I mean, maybe we should unpack his outfit a little bit more, because for those who haven't watched this film, just Google Hugh Grant Cloud Atlas, because he's got basically his whole body is tattooed and it's sort of in a red and white pattern, and then he's got this braid ponytail that goes down like behind his neck, and he looks utterly terrifying. And again, not that recognizable. I only recognized him sort of towards the end of the scene where he's chasing Tom Hanks. But it really is a transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks incredible, and shows. That's when you talk about the makeup doing the best. Because he's absolutely terrifying. You forget about the bumbling Englishman underneath. It's so scary. And that's when I suppose this film, the only few times it comes into its own, when Hugh Grant's on screen.
Taking Heath for granted. Taking Heath for granted. Taking Heath for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking Heath for granted?
Right, Oscar, it's come to that time. Cloud Atlas. Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Diggory, it's been an exhausting half an hour trying to unpack this film in my brain. I'm going to say that we're not taking Hugh for granted, because I can't really fault anything that Hugh does here. He expands his repertoire from anything we've seen before in his career. He plays these roles where every time I'm on the screen, I'm either in stitches laughing or I'm sort of intrigued by how well he plays the characters. And for me, this whole film was an absolute disaster, but the saving grace was seeing Hugh on set. So I'm going to say no, but there's no saving the film. It was awful.
Yeah.
The only good thing about the film was the cast. The cast was good. That's what saves it for me.
That's true.
But yeah, an absolute disaster. And again, I'm sorry, fans, not one you probably want to watch again, but worth watching for Hugh's strange characters.
Indeed.
Diggs.
I mean, I have to say, I think this film is taking Hugh for granted. The film, I mean, if you have read the book, or if you come at the film and you want to watch some YouTube, there's loads of theories you can have afterwards and immerse yourself in that. Then you'll have a great time. I think for anyone else just watching this film off the bat, you're going to be taken out of the film because of the makeup, because of the weird structure, because of all these elements that, you know, we might sound like uncultured, you know, idiots that don't get it. I don't care. I want to enjoy myself. I want it to be spoon-fed to me, maybe. Like I can like Inception. That apparently is a hard film to understand. But I come away from that thinking it's all right. This film it's boring. I think a lot of the time, I think there's bad acting. Watch the film and watch Tom Hanks be the Irish guy that throws some film critic or book critic off the edge of a balcony. That is bad. Tom Hanks is not a bad actor. That is bad. It switches genres, switches from being funny, farce, like old people breaking out of an old people's home, switches then to Hugh Grant literally licking blood from a blade that he's just like stuck into a young child's head. The film, I'm sorry, it's a bad...
It's a terrible film.
It's a bad film. And thus, Hugh sinks with the ship. As fun as he is, as great as that is, they've taken him for a ride here. I'm so sorry. I love you, Hugh. You're great in this film. The film is shit. So,
it's 3 hours of my life I'm never getting back. Oh well.
Absolutely. Oh, and another hour watching the round table at the Toronto Film Festival, and another 50 minutes watching this guy on YouTube trying to explain to me the meaning of the story. All I came away with is going, what more? I watched a 50-minute video, and all he did for 40 minutes was explain the plot. I mean, for God's sake! He was meant to be telling me the meaning of it, but all he did was explain the plot, and the last 10 minutes was him going, so do you understand quantum physics? And then tried to explain quantum physics and said that somehow correlated with the film. Enough.
And that should probably be enough for us, because now I need to go to bed now.
I know, I need to sleep this off. It's only 5 o'clock here and I've got to go. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. Go away, let us know what you think of this film if you like it, if you don't. Follow us on the socials. I'm exhausted. Oscar, goodbye.
Good night.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.